Hi guys, it's Natalie Zangon with another video of mine. Thank you again so much for watching. Thank you for forwarding, and thank you for giving me your feedback, your thoughts, your input. I'm really delighted to hear. As a mother and a remotely working person, this is my office, which is my car. So this is where I get to do my videos. So today, I wanted to do a talk on intimacy and sexuality, and what does the Torah call it? What does Torah refer to it? And what's the lesson and the teaching we learn from it? So we live in a generation that the whole concept of intimacy and sexual drive, it's either lacking or missing, or let's try this and let's try that, and people are trying alternative things. And most couples complain that things are not the same anymore. We used to have a lot of passion, but we don't. And especially when the children come, there's another responsibility that goes on top of that. And we live in a society, especially in Los Angeles, that everything is like so sexualized, the right look, the right skin, the right appearance, the right physicality. So it's all pressure and about the outside. The sexual part of it becomes about the physical appearance, the look, the weight, the this, the man, the does. It's all about that appearance. So what does the Torah teach us? What does the Torah teach us about intimacy and sexuality? So as I said in my other video, there is the sexuality part of it that refers to the pru'urvu, to be fruitful and multiply, which is something that humans do, animals do, and it's all the same act that happens, that physical act that happens, just like eating, just like drinking. It's an act, right? That act is the animalistic part of the behavior that takes place. It's very physical, very earthly. So then you come to think about it. So what does the Torah teach us about this behavior? So in the Torah, we learn about the manifestation of the female and the masculine energy, that when the original man was created, it was Zachar v'Nekeva, man and female, man and woman within the body, and then they got separated. So there's that constant yearning of the unification and the oneness of that separation. So God is the divine and the provider of all. So He is everything. So within Him resides everything. And we are the reflection of godliness. So intimacy and oneness, with the word intimacy, is where the godliness part comes, which is different than to be fruitful and multiply and the sexual part of it. That is an ultimate higher level of being. And that's why it says when man and woman unite, they become like basar echad, the oneness. Inside the Beit HaMikdash that we had, there was a place called the Kodesh Kodashim, where the Ten Commandments was, and it was the most holiest of holies. On top of it were two bird human looking that were krovim. And every time the Bnei Israel were good with each other, they would come close, and when they weren't, they would go far apart. There's some commentary that says the reason they were facing each other is to teach us that's what makes human different than all the other animals and mammals. Humans don't have intimacy just with their organs. Humans have intimacy with all of their senses, with all of their state of being. And when we have the laws of family purity, Torah Mishpacha, that 2 weeks of the month there's no physical contact, and 2 weeks there is physical and everything else. So what does it teach us about the 2 weeks that the woman is nida? It says, do not, in the book of Vayikra, it says, do not come close to nakedness of a woman who's menstruating. Like, don't come close to her, your wife that's on her period, to her nakedness, to want to have relations with her. That's not the time for the physical contact. So what's the time for then? What's the time for then? If the physical is out of the picture, what's there? So the 5 languages of love is by Gary Chapman, I think his name, is fantastic to think about. It says during that time, the woman is fragile. Her emotional, mental state is down. Spiritually, she's going through a lot, like the menstruation. That is the time you want to provide with her for her emotional support, compassion, care. It talks about, Chapman talks about giving her a gift act of service, taking care of something in the house that she had been asking you to do and you haven't. What you do during the 2 weeks when she's nida, where you cannot come too close to touching her physically, her element, her feminine energy needs compassion. She's more of an internal part. She's not external like the male energy. She's internal. So she needs your empathy, your compassion, your support, you checking in on her. Hi, honey, how are you doing? How's your day going? Looking at her and saying, thank you so much for all your hard work. I'm noticing you're tired. Notice her. Do not treat her like a Haggadah or the Passover dishes where you put her on the shelf for 2 weeks and then when she goes to the mikveh, you think she's driven to be with you physically. No. Women need emotional intimacy. Woman is known as the mother of the earth. Within her resides the potential of life, potential of givingness. She's full of it. She has Bina Yetera. She's full of life, full of love, full of giving. But you, as the husband, when you sign the ketubah and you have the mitzvah of onata, the mitzvah of caring for her, providing for her, emotional intimacy is part of it. Just because you didn't see it at home, just because your father didn't provide it for your mother, just because you were never exposed to it doesn't make it okay. Learn, educate yourself so you teach your children and your sons how to provide that for their spouses. Humans are different than mammals and animals because we can connect in other ways than just the physical part of it. We could connect spiritually, spiritual intimacy, emotional intimacy, intellectual intimacy. There are different ways that we could provide companionship for one another when the physical is not there. So God says during the time when your wife menstruates for that 20, 30 years, from the time she's 20, let's say you get married, 30, until she becomes menopause, work on those other muscles. Create a relationship. Create that oneness, that your relationship goes beyond the physical ability. That relationship goes on to ultimate oneness that God has given you, and you truly become basar echad, not just physically, in all the other levels. You tap into it. You take all the elements of fire, water, earth, wind, and you unite all of them. That's where the oneness comes, and that's what the woman needs, that companionship. And that's why the laws are there, to strengthen both sides of the relationship. And that's why the Torah calls intimacy da'at. And he knew her. Abraham knew his wife, and she got pregnant because he spent the time to understand his wife. This is Natalie Zangon. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure to share it. And my email, nataliezangon@gmail.com.